Is the stock market in trouble? Wow, the week before this past one, the markets looked fabulous. But this week, after a downward move by the equity markets, should we be worried? I'm not ready to reduce risk exposure just yet, and I'll show you why. Let's take a look at how the markets performed and what our current metrics are telling us now. So as you can obviously see here, over the past week, all of the markets are down for the week. ARK leading the way, small caps, NASDAQ, these are the higher risk areas, and they're all down the most, followed by the Dow and the S&P. So at first glance, this looks very unhealthy, but there's more to the market than 1 week's performance. So let's see how we're doing overall. If we look back over the past month, you can see that the NASDAQ was leading the way, followed by ARK, followed by the S&P, and then followed by the Dow and small caps. This actually looks pretty healthy. And what about year to date? A very healthy rally here overall year to date, with ARK and the NASDAQ well above the other ones and leading the way higher, followed by the S&P, followed by small caps, and then the Dow. And how are the current bottom dynamics looking? Well, what this is telling me, you've got a bottom confirmation level that was up here at 100%, and it has been falling recently. Now, what I don't like here is that the bottom forming indicator is rising while the confidence level is moving higher. This tells me the markets are likely to go down over the next few days, but they could just as easily turn around, because I like the fact that the safety confidence is way down here. This is usually good for equity markets. So not willing to make a prediction next week one way or the other, just telling you where this is currently pointing, but that could turn around very quickly. How about risk versus opportunity? Well, if we look at risk versus opportunity, this is great. We've got the opportunity level way up here at almost 80%. Risk level is rising, but it's just barely above 60. I don't get concerned with this until it's above 80%. And the risk acceleration is down here in the mid-20s. Yes, it's pointing upward, but I really don't get concerned with this one until it's well above 60. So really nothing to see here. Well, if we look at equity versus safety, these tend to move fairly quickly. Loving the fact that the NASDAQ 100 is right up here in first place all of these weeks. And by the way, if you go back a couple of weeks before this table, it was still in first place. This is fabulous. How about cash? What's cash doing? Well, if we take a look at cash, cash was wiggling around here. Now it was kind of stuck in the number 5 position, dropped a couple of weeks ago down to the 6th position, which I really liked. And then more recently, it has moved up a bit, but it's still kind of in the middle of the pack here. So I'm not really concerned about where the cash level is right now. I don't like that it's moving up, but it's not in a bad place. What does give me a little bit of pause here is the sort of flight to safety that I see going on. And you can see that here with EDV, which are long treasuries. You can see they were down here in the 6th place, moved up to 5th, and then jumped up here to 2nd. And you can see the same thing with TLT here, where it moved kind of sideways and then jumped up here. This is showing me a bit of a flight to safety, although the NASDAQ 100 is still strongly in first place. So not worried yet, not worried yet. What are we seeing in the buying and selling pressure? Well, if we look at the buying and selling pressure, you can see what's happened here over the past week. Dow collapsing, S&P falling, NASDAQ 100 falling, and ARK going flat and then falling late. Now you can see that in the selling pressure. You can see how the selling pressures all bottomed out back here and have risen above the buying pressure. You see it here as well, and you see it here. And now with ARK, the selling pressure bottomed out way back here and has been rising and is now above the buying pressure. So this doesn't look great, but I'm not ready to jump ship yet. And what about the Russell 2000? Well, you can see that the price is collapsing here and the selling pressure is increasing. So this doesn't look very good right now. And if we look at sector rankings, they tell very much the same story that we saw earlier with all these other metrics. I mean, you can see that last week up here in this top table, we had a very healthy market: technology, Bitcoin, innovation, consumer discretionary. But if you move to this week, this bottom table, you can see now Bitcoin is way up here at the very top, and you'll see why later. Followed by technology and consumer discretionary, semiconductors here. This is great, but I don't like the fact that cash and consumer staples have moved higher here, and consumer discretionary has moved. Oh, consumer discretionary has actually moved up. That's actually good. Okay, nothing to see here, folks. But I don't like the fact that consumer staples and cash have moved higher here. So how do sector rank accelerations look? Well, this is a shorter, quicker view of what's going on in the markets. And if we look at last week, this table up here, you can see it was very strong. Technology, consumer staples bothered me up here, but consumer discretionary was still very high up here. And then you can see cash was way down here. Cash and treasuries all way down here. This is great. This looks really, really good. Well, let's fast forward to this week. And if we look at this week, well, obviously Bitcoin's in the number 1 position, but consumer staples is in the number 2 position, followed by healthcare and utilities. These are safe haven sectors. I don't like this. And you can see that cash has moved way up here, consumer discretionary has moved down, and treasuries have moved up. This looks like a flight to safety, or at least the beginning of one. It may not last, so we'll have to wait and see. Again, I don't see enough evidence here to reduce risk exposure yet. And if we look at treasuries over the past week, you can see some of that flight to safety. You can see that they bounced up, fell back, bounced up, fell back, and bounced up again, ended up the week higher. How about over the last month? Well, over the last month, you can see that they've been steadily rising, and the highest risk treasuries, EDV here in purple, finished first, followed by TLT, and then all of the shorter duration treasuries actually finished negative again over the past month. And what about year to date? Well, year to date, you can see that overall there's been kind of a downward trend. I don't give much credence to that. But you can see that it's bounced off the bottom here twice, and they're moving higher here. So this could be a flight to safety, but again, too early to tell. And if we look at the buying and selling pressure for treasuries, this tells a really good story. You can see the short-term treasuries, SHY, have been dropping, and they're still dropping here as of late, but now the buying pressure is starting to shoot up. What about IEI, intermediate treasuries? Well, again, buying pressure shooting higher here, but not much action in the price movement. Remember, I said the shorter duration treasuries were actually down for the month, and that includes both of these. Now, if we look at IEF, these are what I call intermediate to long treasuries, 7 to 10 years. You can see again the buying pressure above the selling pressure, but there is a little bit of an upward movement in price here. And then if we go to TLT, long bonds, 20-year duration, you can see we've had a very nice upward move in price here, and you can see that in the buying pressure here. So long treasuries look great, short-term treasuries not so great. And what about gold? Yep. Not a fan of gold right now. You can see that the price has just been collapsing and continues to collapse, and the selling pressure is moving well above the buying pressure. This does not look good. Now, what does that say about inflation? Well, if we look at the inverted yield curve, you've heard me say this many times. It was inverted by 1.1% or 110 basis points back here. That's crazy. It tried to recover, and now we're back down here at 101, almost 102 basis points inversion. This is insane. The Fed is apparently intent on still raising rates, and you can see that here in the futures market. There's a 72% chance the Fed will raise rates by 25 basis points when they meet on July 26th, and there's only a 28% chance that they'll leave rates where they are currently. This is crazy, though. Gold is showing that there's no inflation. And in fact, if you look at productivity with, Chat GPT coming out and other AI tools, the increases we're getting in productivity are, I hate the word, but unprecedented. And, I know developers who are telling me what used to take them weeks, they can now do in a few hours. That's an increase in productivity of 10 to 100 times. We've never seen those kinds of productivity increases before. So I think the Fed is getting it wrong here. And what about Bitcoin? Oh my. I mean, look at this thing. This is crazy. This is a hockey stick if I ever saw one. Bitcoin is going through the roof and the buying pressure is off the chart. I've never seen this before. This is amazing. Boy, it'll be interesting to see how this goes over the next several weeks. So look, over the past week, the equity markets have fallen while the Treasury markets have gone up, at least the longer duration Treasuries, in what appears to be a flight to safety. Gold's heading lower, as you just saw, so I don't see any fear of inflation. But crypto has gone through the roof, literally. So I'm glad we're holding Bitcoin exposure in some of our client accounts. Look, before you go jumping out of a first floor window, wait until we see how next week plays out. The metrics aren't at a level where I'm worried yet, but next week will paint a more complete picture. We'll just have to sit tight and wait for the markets to play out. Until then, I'm Calvin Rose, and thank you for watching Invest Smarter this week. That's all for now.
What did you say when I told you? Maybe this wrist wasn't gold proof. Packing my bags like it's all true. Hard to make friends when I'm focused on all these bars that I'm holding. I like the cold, but it's lonely, yeah. This life feels like the sunny water.